digits 988 can save a life. If you
All right, guys, welcome on in to the Falls Count Anywhere podcast. Charlie Turner, Chris DiCarlo, John Restino, all here with you again. Guys, it's been a little bit of a rough week in the world of wrestling. We lost two wrestlers this week, and before we get into that, also real quick, here in Western New York, we lost legendary hockey NHL announcer, Hall of Fame NHL announcer, and Rick Jeanneret, who is an icon here in Buffalo. So rest in peace to Rick Jeanneret. And on the wrestling side, losing Terry Funk at the age of 79, and shockingly losing Bray Wyatt at the age of 36 years old. Guys, it's been a rough week, a lot of death, and it sucks. And you know, I don't know what your initial thoughts are of this. We'll get into a little bit more of it later on into the show. It's just been a sad week, guys. Terry Funk was such a legend. As you see there, he's got the Hall of Fame background, and deservedly so. He is a Hall of Famer and a legend. Those guys will absolutely be missed. Just crazy stuff this week, guys.
Yeah, it's just it's a part of life, but it's sad and shocking with Bray on the other side of it.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we'll get into all of that during this show. We have a great guest with us here this week, guys. A great guest to talk some classic wrestling, to talk some current wrestling as well. This man runs Wrestling Weekly through all social media outlets, whether it be Facebook, the artist formerly known as Twitter, which is now an X or some shit. We got through TikTok, YouTube, whatever the case. Also has a book out called Family, Bacon, and Wrestling, which we're going to talk about as well. And that is our guest today. He is Mr. Scott Richardson. Scott, thank you so much for joining us on Falls Count Anywhere podcast. How's it going today, sir?
Going great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely, Scott. And I guess the first thing I wanted to get into with you, Scott, let's talk about you first. You run the Wrestling Weekly through all social media platforms. Just want to talk about your background, how you got into wrestling. When did you become a fan of wrestling, and what made you want to start, the social media stuff that you're doing now?
Sure. No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Wrestler Weekly. It's one of those things where, I wrote the book Family, Bacon, Wrestling, and it really was started with family. For me as a wrestling fan growing up in the 70s, it was Southwest Virginia, so small, very small town, Marion, Virginia. And it was Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling every Saturday morning. And so, we didn't have internet, we didn't have cable. This was way before all that. And so my family were wrestling fans, my grandparents were wrestling fans. And so I was kind of born into that fandom, just understanding what it was, Johnny Valentine and Wahoo McDaniel, and obviously the emergence of Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, which I have a younger brother that's 3.5 years younger, Reggie, who helped start Wrestler Weekly with me. And, we were, one day I was Ric Flair, one day he was Ricky Steamboat. Depends on who was winning on TV. And, and we used the pillows as chairs, and my mom made belts out of cardboard and some carpet strips. And that was us. But it was that Saturday morning, some kids watch cartoons. We watched wrestling. And, the reason that you throw the bacon in there, it's Southern, it's country, it's Southwest Virginia. My mom made bacon and fat back and gravy and biscuits and eggs. And so Saturday morning, when you smelled the bacon, that meant, hey, get up, because the whole family's coming over, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and we're going to watch Bob Caudle and David Crockett and Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And then as kids, if we were lucky enough, right after the local news on Saturday nights at 11:30, still my favorite theme song of a wrestling TV show was Worldwide Wrestling, which was Mid-Atlantic out of Richmond. and that was Rich Landrum, who we just recently lost on the 14th, and Johnny Weaver, who was his co-host. So, that was kind of my upbringing. And, my first match, we talked about some deaths this week. Abe Jacobs passed. And a lot of wrestling fans might not know Abe Jacobs, but for Mid-Atlantic fans, the very first match I ever saw live was in the late 70s, and it was Abe Jacobs was the first live match versus David Patterson that I ever saw. So losing Rich Landrum and Abe Jacobs, obviously Terry Funk, you're talking about a lot of guys that I grew up with watching, and certainly after starting Wrestle Weekly, being able to meet some of these guys and be friends with some of them. It's been a tough week, as you said, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. And your book covers three great things: family, bacon, wrestling. I mean, that's you can't lose there, right? Let me ask you this, Scott. You mentioned you had a brother, so I got to ask: when you guys were growing up, who was getting put in the figure four or the camel clutch on the living room floor there?
Yeah, I definitely applied many figure fours, and to my brother still says he has knee problems today because I would lock it in and as Ric Flair, he grabbed the rope, so I'm grabbing the couch cushion and I'm really applying that thing. So yeah, I definitely got the best of that.
those holes, they work, man. The figure four, I was put in one as a kid once, man. That thing hurts.
Now once he realized he could flip me over and apply the same pressure, then the secret was out. So
you're right. Yeah. That's great stuff, man. Growing up with a brother, I grew up with a sister. She put me in the camel clutch, I think, once, or it might have been vice versa, but it's effective. It worked. So yeah. But Scott, I wanted to ask, we talked at the top of the show, we mentioned, of course, Terry Funk, the legendary Terry Funk, passing away. Hall of Famer, and he was also a big part of pop culture. He was in a few movies, Over the Top with Stallone. Right there, you see him in Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, the late Patrick Swayze. When you look at that picture, it's like, wow, both those guys are gone. But what are some of your thoughts on Terry Funk as a wrestler, and how he was inundated in pop culture as well? He went beyond wrestling. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I go back to when he was a world champion. I was young enough to remember that, and seeing in the Mid-Atlantic magazines, you would have the ratings, which I put out on Fridays on our socials. But you see Terry Funk at the top with the 10 pounds of gold. So that was kind of an early memory. I got to meet Terry about 2014. We did I did a fan fest with him, and it was small town North Carolina, Albemarle, North Carolina, and just a great guy. I mean, he spent a
you glitched there, Scott. Go ahead. Sorry.
Glitched on us. Yeah.
Did we lose Scott?
Say about
Larry.
Baba.
Sorry, Scott. You kind of froze up for a minute there. Sorry about that.
But yeah, I got to know him in 2014. Spent some time with him. Spent a couple hours with him at a fan fest and before the doors opened, type of thing, and just spent a lot of time with me. I talked to him about his time in Japan, and he just had a lot of great things to say about Giant Baba and working for Baba, and called him a beautiful man, and just how it was just ran well, organized well, and he always took care of Terry. And so that was it. And I tell you, I've got one of the best pieces I have in my collection is 10 pounds of gold that was signed by Dusty, signed by Harley, signed by Terry, and as I'm watching, and it's signed by pretty much everyone that held that title, and wow. When I sit down and
oh no, we lost our guest. What happened? He disappeared. He didn't even freeze this time. He just disappeared.
I think internet connection there must be.
We were gonna talk some Bray Wyatt too. He just disappeared like Bray Wyatt, like not death wise. I'm talking like when he was in the ring and all of a sudden he disappeared. Like, where did Bray Wyatt go? That's what just happened there with Scott Richardson. Sorry, Scott. I don't know what in the world happened. John, I don't know if you could resend him the link there.
Or hopefully he'll just come back on with us, you think?
Yeah. Unless maybe Was this like,
I
screw
can
you guys?
let
I'm
me
getting out of
go
here.
out. I'm gonna be off the screen for a few.
All
and
right,
see
yeah,
what I
good
can
deal.
do.
Thanks, John. Well, Chris, as we have a
Maybe
minute here,
that Facebook Messenger. Maybe I don't know.
we can give that a shot. But yeah, let's talk some Terry Funk though, Chris. Like I said, man, the pulp fiction. Where am I getting that? The pop culture is what I wanted to say. Of where he was again, he was in a couple movies. So even if you weren't a wrestling fan, if you saw a picture of Terry Funk, you'd probably recognize him, maybe even just from those movies. Oh, it looks like we Scott, there he is. Sorry, Scott, we lost you there, buddy.
All right, fellas. I always blame Kevin Sullivan during these times, just like I did in my book. So
Just,
That was like a Batman
right?
like disappearance there, yeah.
This internet, right? Technical difficulties, red tape.
That's it, the red tape.
I always blame Kevin Sullivan. No worries, fellas.
We were talking a little Terry Funk there. I apologize. I don't know where you left off there before we lost you there.
Talking about when he was in Japan.
Well,
oh right, yeah, the giant Baba, and yeah.
I just think that overall, I mean, Terry Funk was such an icon. We get legend thrown around a lot, but one of my best friends is Austin Idol. Believe it or not, we speak every day, and Austin.
Cool.
I don't want to speak for him because he always gets upset when I speak for him. But he and Terry were very close, and he would call. They would have a phone call once a week. Even the last 6 months, Austin still would call every week and get voicemail, and they were very close. And it's. I think we're all gonna feel this one for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody said, the Iron Sheik, Rich Landrum, like you said, Abe Jacobs, Terry Funk, shockingly Bray Wyatt, so far. So it's just been like a tough string within the past.
It's been a rough year. Yeah, it's been a rough year.
But on a lighter note, let's talk. John, you can relate here with Scott, and Charlie kind of remembers too, but mainly me and John go back to NWA Maple Leaf Wrestling out of Canada. And of course, we had Mid-Atlantic here, Scott, every Saturday, 3 p.m. We got to watch that. And of course, we were fortunate to have and reach out, and I still talk to sometimes today, Mr. David Crockett on the show. And that was a blast. And I wish I could have Bob Caudle, but I don't know what's going on there with his health. But anyway, those are our memories. And of course, just love Mid-Atlantic. I wish the WWE network would put out from the 70s up until 81, TV shows of Worldwide and Mid-Atlantic. I know they have it, but they're kind of stingy on the classic content.
Absolutely.
Scott, now, John, you have that picture. Now, you do a throwback on the Wrestling Weekly. You do like a throwback Monday there, and I was able to dig up a couple of old issues. I don't know. This is why I asked. I didn't know if you were like affiliated with the magazine specifically, but a couple I was able to dig up. I guess I was really big into the Hulkster there. I had a couple issues with Hogan on it. There with Flair. This was after he lost the belt to the Warrior, and then the other one there was a little bit before that. But Scott, you mentioned it. As far as like when you get to the magazine rack, when you got to the grocery store, when you got to wherever you were going with your parents, and you ran to that magazine rack, man, and it was just, when you peeled open the magazine, man, you saw like rankings of wrestlers that, you knew were around. You heard of Ric Flair, you heard of Dusty Rhodes, but if you followed just WWF on TV, which mainly I did back then, and then when you peeled open these magazines back then, it's like, oh, Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and Terry Funk and who are some of these guys, and then you would get into some of the articles. It was just like the kayfabe back then was so protected because there wasn't the internet, and it was all, the magazine racks and whatever you saw on TV. It's an era that will never return, unfortunately. But, growing up in that era, what was that like for you as a kid as far as, like we're saying, like the magazines and all that stuff? I mean, it was just so fun back then.
Yeah, and I tell you, we're still kayfabe. I won't change. I don't get into the shoot stuff. I don't care what you were eating backstage. I just remember what I saw when I went to the matches. And, for the magazines for us, it was really everything, because for me, we didn't have a lot of money. And so, it was not, we didn't get cable till well after, mid 80s. So we're after WrestleMania stuff. And then, if you read my book, you'll see that about 3-year stretch, we actually got banned from wrestling. My dad was very religious, and Kevin Sullivan, and we moved from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling to Championship Wrestling from Florida in 81. And the Kevin Sullivan, as he says to me, it wasn't satanic, Scotty, but it was enough of the cult that my dad certainly thought it was satanic. And so between that and the bloody covers, if you remember the bloody magazine covers, so my dad, he banned us. And my brother and I came home one day from school, and all of our magazines, everything was gone, missing, thrown away. And it wasn't until I was writing my book, my mom said, well, he didn't throw them away. He actually burned them in the backyard. And I said, oh great, gosh. That makes for a better book.
Yeah, right.
but it was so for a 3-year stretch, guys, we had to recreate. We took Star Wars men and G.I. Joes, and we had to book our own territories. We had to create our own matches. And it wasn't until the summer of 87 that Ric Flair was doing an appearance. We had moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I live now, and Ric Flair was doing an appearance at a Rose's department store. And my aunt, my mom's sister, Sharon, was begging my dad, look, it's time to let the kids back to wrestling. And I was probably 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. And so we got to meet Ric Flair in 1987. And that was at the height of those magazines you just showed. And I asked Ric Flair, I said, you're in line and you see him. He's got the sunglasses and the suit and the bleach white hair and sitting at a desk table. And so I said, I'm going to ask him a question. So I get up there and I say, do you think you can beat Hulk Hogan? Because, we're from the South. We didn't like Hulk Hogan. We were Ric Flair fans, and Four Horsemen at that point. And so he just looked over his sunglasses at me and then looked back. And so I took that as a stupid question, kid. But no, it was for me. The magazines will never get old. I have become friends with guys like Bill Apter and Craig Peters and Bob Smith and those guys that wrote for that magazine. And Stu Sachs was the longtime editor there, and he really liked our stuff, and he would put different guys from the magazine on our show on YouTube. So, it was because I, as a kid, Bob Smith and Bill Apter, they were just as much as big as Ric Flair to me, because I'm reading these articles for so many years. And I tell him that I had Bill Apter sign my 10 pounds of gold, and I thought he almost would shed a tear, but that's how special those guys were. And even the guys like Bob Caudle and Rich Lander, they were the voices, that's what you remember from your childhood. And so, look, guys, I'm so old school kayfabe that I still get mad when I see Ronnie Garvin's punch, because it's illegal. So
right, yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to you, Scott. Hi, guys. I got a DVD collection that is probably next to McMahon's, and old school every day in this house. I think I mentioned to you, I started watching 1980. I was 5 years old until now, and definitely old school all the way. We've had Mr. Craig Peters on, great guy.
Yep.
I do have a picture with Bill after a WCW Nitro event here in Buffalo, New York. And I went up to him and they were like, Chris, only I would know who he was. And so we got a cool picture, and I've been trying to get him on the show for the past 2 years. So hopefully we'll get him on. But yeah, definitely, Scott, I definitely agree. And right there with you, buddy.
Yeah, and after he's covered wrestling since what, the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like 71, 72, somewhere in that range, I believe. Scott, the one thing I wanted to mention too, which I thought is great. I don't know if they still do it, but I have family down in the Raleigh, North Carolina area there at Apex and Cary. Been to a few Hurricanes games, and I don't know if they still do it, but when a goal is scored, Ric Flair comes up on the Jumbotron and gives a big Canes goal. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
And the whole crowd does the woo after that. I don't know if they still do it, but
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
how they incorporated Ric Flair into that.
Absolutely. This is Flair country right here, buddy.
Sure is. It sure is. And speaking of Flair, he's talking about doing maybe another match. I know he's been in like the cannabis business recently with Mike Tyson, so he might be smoking a little too much recently. But that last match he did, was it last year or 2 years ago? It was kind of rough. So I'm hoping that he stays away from the ring. I mean, he's a legend. He has nothing left to prove, right? That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, and that happens. We see it in boxing all the time. Guys try to come back, and I'm a big Roy Jones Jr. fan, and I have in the entire catalog and kind of went through all of his fights like a Netflix series. So I got to see him when he was in amateurs, and you're watching him, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, what are you doing in Russia, getting knocked out in the first round? Every fight. So the legends, they sometimes they just can't let it go. And I think for Mr. Flair, I think it's time. It's been time, actually.
Yeah, that was kind of rough to watch, and there was a confirmed story that when he got backstage, the guy's bleeding all over himself. He wanted to go chug a bunch of beers, and the Undertaker was backstage, and he stepped in. And he said, "No, you're gonna have a couple Gatorades first, and sit down and relax before you do that." Because I think Flair thought it was still 1986, and he was going to party all night and take some girls to Space Mountain and all that stuff. But man, it was a struggle that night, man.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
Yeah, and I'll have to. I've got some information, but I'm not going to disclose it on this show. But just say, he definitely thought it was 1986.
Fair enough.
Before and after the show.
Yeah.
We could tell.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. Fair enough. Yeah, but then now, do you follow any AEW going on right now, Scott? Because I know they got a big show coming up tomorrow night in Wembley. They're supposed to fill out 80,000 seats. Have you been keeping in touch with AEW?
Yeah, I'm a big Adam Cole fan, so certainly rooting for Bebe. But we'll see. Mike Leotis is the other half of Wrestler Weekly, and he came on board a couple years after we had got things cranked up here. But no, Mike is big into it. My brother Reggie is big into it, and I'm into it, guys, until I just get bored with it, and then I just pop something in from 1981. And but no, I follow AEW certainly and most of wrestling today, and I have my favorites, Adam Cole, AJ Styles, guys that actually can wrestle. I won't say work because I'm not in the business, but I'll say they wrestle.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of AJ Styles. A huge fan. I think he should have another title run.
Also, their NWA 75 is doing their pay-per-view tonight and tomorrow too as well. So busy football, college football, and wrestling weekend seems to be.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, now NWA I do follow, obviously, with Austin Idol being involved, and certainly have a lot of friends connected with NWA, and so looking forward to their show and wish them all the success.
Let me ask you this too, Scott. The on the card for All In for AEW, there's a coffin match where Sting is involved. Now Sting was on the shelf for a little bit there. He took a high risk move where he jumped through a table and almost knocked himself out. Luckily, he's okay, but he had to take a few weeks off. Now Sting is younger than Flair, so in fairness, of course, he's going to be moving around a lot better. But what have you thought of Sting's run with AEW? Some of the high risk maneuvers he's doing. They brought back the Joker Sting, which I thought was kind of fun. They're doing that now. But your impressions on the Stinger?
I to be honest with you, I think it's some of his best work. I mean, I think that he's found a little bit of a there that he's with it, and certainly the high risk maneuvers. You hold your breath on those, but
Yeah.
But no, I think his promos and the way that he's interacting with his if you take the last 6 months of his opponents, I think it's some of his best stuff.
Yeah, he's been great. What I love about Sting is his evolution. It's not quite Undertaker level, but his evolution from Surfer Sting to the Crow Sting to the Joker Sting, and now he's kind of like a hybrid of all of that now. And I just think what Stinger has contributed to the wrestling business is just absolutely unmatched. I mean, well, I shouldn't say unmatched, but it's up there with some of the guys that have really contributed a lot of years of their life to the wrestling business. So shout out to Sting. And I love how he's kind of mentoring Darby Allin and a lot of the other guys. I think that's a fantastic thing.
Well, and that's what you hope for. You hope that Darby is absorbing all of this. I mean, he's getting a front row seat to like someone that, again, when you look at the Terry Funks and we talk about Ric Flair, some of these guys, it's going to be hard to ever duplicate what those guys have done in the business.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, the legends that we followed as kids, I love to see Sting still sticking around. And, Flair, he did the last match. It was rough to watch, but I love to see what he's up to date or up to, what he's doing on social media and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's always great to, because as we learned, guys, life is precious. I mean, you look at Bray Wyatt at 36, passing away, Luke Harper, Brody Lee, passing away a couple years ago at a very young age. So, there's Bray Wyatt there. Any quick thoughts on Bray Wyatt and his impact in the wrestling business? Of course, he had some different personas. He had like the cult leader Bray Wyatt, Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, and of course the Fiend there as well. One of my favorite iterations of him. He would kind of bust it out here and there, kind of like Finn Balor with the Demon type of thing. Your thoughts on Bray Wyatt and what he meant to wrestling?
Well, certainly I followed his family, with Blackjack Mulligan and so certainly been kind of witnessing him, watching him throughout his career, and it's just sad. You hate it for the young kids that are left, the family, and certainly Bray Wyatt was a creative genius. I don't think anyone would doubt that. He had some great runs, and certainly as far as the business goes, as we can see, very similar to Luke Harper. The wave, how that ripple affects every wrestler, no matter what their status is and stature is in the business. I think that, it's good. Tough week, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tough week.
Yeah.
Well, let's Scott, tell everybody out there. Let's promote you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah.
And can fans get your book still? Tell us all about that, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Book is on Amazon, Family Bacon Wrestling. We can find us on all socials at Wrestler Weekly. We have many different episodes and shows on our YouTube channel. Twitter, or now X, is kind of the home base, but we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, any other social media you probably can find us. Articles are on the Medium app. If you have that, you can find some written articles that I've done on
cool.
Ricky Steve.
Oh,
we lost him again.
I
was actually frozen too a little bit, guys. I don't know what's going on with this internet today, but
well, yeah, we were just wrapping up, but again, Amazon is where you can find that book again, Family Bacon Wrestling. And again, it covers all things wrestling and family and of course bacon. Who doesn't love that, right? So you wrap bacon in anything, I'll read it or eat it, whatever the case. But I guess at this point, guys, let's go ahead and take a break. But thank you to Scott Richardson. Again, from Wrestling Weekly, could be found on all social media platforms. Thank you to him for joining us. And we'll go ahead and take a quick break, guys.
Digits 988 can save a life. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides connection to free confidential support. There is hope. The Lifeline works. For 24/7 confidential support, just call, text, or chat 988.
right, guys, welcome back. Falls Count Anywhere podcast. Charlie, John, and Chris all here with you again. Thank you to each and every one of our sponsors. And thank you again to Scotty Richardson of Wrestling Weekly. We lost him there at the last minute as we were wrapping up the interview, but we got most of it in, which is a good thing. We got about 90% of what we were shooting for there. So thank you so much to him for sharing some wrestling memories and some of his background as a fan. It was very cool stuff. But guys, let's transition a little bit. I know, like I said, it's been kind of a somber show, talking Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. Let's talk a little AEW. Of course, they got the gigantic show coming up at Wembley Stadium. That's tomorrow. And Chris, I didn't know this. You schooled me to this. This is actually an afternoon show tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, I think because of the time difference between here and the UK, the pre-show is 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I think they're starting at 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Ah, very good, very good. And it looks like the 0 hour match, I guess, is kind of like their free-for-all, like WWE does, where you get a free match without ordering. It looks like it was that Ring of Honor tag team match there. The thing that's cool about the storyline they're doing, MJF and Adam Cole, they've been teaming up, and everybody's waiting for MJF to turn on Adam Cole. Adam Cole was asked about that on Dynamite. He snapped on Renee Paquette about that. All part of the storyline, of course, but he snapped on her saying, we're best friends, nothing's going to happen. But the cool thing is they're doing the tag match for the pre-show for the Ring of Honor tag team titles against Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher. And then for the main event that night, it's going to be Adam Cole and MJF for the AEW title one-on-one, which is very cool because it could, and I think the way they should set it up, my opinion, is win the tag belts and then have the two tag champs going at it at the end of the night. I think that would make for a fantastic storyline, which it's already been a pretty cool storyline so far.
I agree. I foresee that as well. And I do foresee MJF turning on him at some point, but hey, maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's kind of expecting it. There's been like hints of that happening. And then again, that's when Adam Cole snapped. He's like, no, we're fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, we'll see how that goes going forward. We won't go through every single match here, but another one of the matches that a little bit of intrigue here is Chris Jericho, Will Ospreay. A lot of people are saying Ospreay is the best wrestler in the business right now, hands down. And Chris Jericho, of course, the legendary Chris Jericho at this point, he's had such a long career. So a lot of folks looking forward to that match. Also, they're doing a Stadium Stampede match, and I don't know how they're going to pull this off. I know they did that when during the pandemic. They did it in Jacksonville using the Jaguars Stadium, where these guys are just doing crazy shit in an empty stadium. So I don't know how this is going to work. If this is like a pre-recorded match that they did in Wembley Stadium before the fans get there and all that sort of thing. I have no idea, but there's like a whole bunch of people involved in it, and there's some TBAs there at the bottom. So maybe there's going to be some other surprises to be determined, to be announced.
That's cool.
Maybe some surprises in that match as well. And then also on the screen there, you see the trios match. AEW does the trio matches there, which I think is cool. They got the trio champions and whatnot, Kenny Omega and that crew, and that's going to be fun too. So I'll be honest with you guys, I don't watch a ton of AEW. I'll watch it here and there, but some of these matches are very intriguing. I'm interested to see. Now, here's the thing too. A couple times on TV Wednesday, they were talking about this being the biggest show of all time, and Chris Jericho even said, "This is bigger than WrestleMania. This is bigger than Japan. And some people are like, "All right, settle down a little bit, dude. This is a big deal for AEW, but it's not quite that big on that scale where you're comparing it to WrestleMania, right?"
Right, definitely agree. And good for the company, good for AEW, and of course the Wembley Stadium, a classic venue as we remember SummerSlam 1992.
Yeah.
Should be a good show. And also a side note there, like I mentioned during the interview there, we got NFL preseason and college games going on at the same time. We also have wrestling going on at the same time this weekend.
Absolutely.
With the NWA 75 pay-per-view tonight and tomorrow. And then, of course, AEW tomorrow as well. So, yeah, busy weekend.
Yeah, good stuff, man. So we'll definitely recap some All In the upcoming weeks. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of it. So we'll see how AEW does pulling that off. CM Punk part of that card as well, going up against Samoa Joe. So that should be a good match as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the crowd reaction. Usually AEW crowds are a little bit more, well, the crowd anyway in London or the UK, whatever the case,
Good.
they're usually pretty wild. Similar to like Puerto Rico, that's always a wild crowd. So the crowd's going to be electric. There's no mistaking that. And then who knows? Maybe we'll see some surprises. There's a big rumor going on right now, and Edge addressed this online that he took to his social media, and Hall of Famer Edge stated that WWE did send him an offer. As of now, he has not taken it. So there's some strong rumors. His brother Christian's already in AEW that Edge might be showing up at All In. I think that would make for a huge crowd pop. So I would love to see that. I'd love to see Edge show up. He's had his run with WWE. He's 49. Why not, join your brother for a little while over in AEW? He's got some old friends there. He's got the Hardys there and Chris Jericho, among others. I could totally see that happening, and I would love to see the crowd reaction for that.
Yeah, I could see it happening too. And yeah, what a pop that would be. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think it would be incredible. Really, really fun. So yeah, again, we'll kind of go over that in the coming weeks there to see how the results pan out there, guys. But in the kind of and I don't want to be like a downer on today's show, but I did leave out the jobber this week. It was kind of a rough week in the world of wrestling, so to kind of make fun of anybody just didn't feel right this week. So we'll save the jobber for next week. Not that we were always making fun of them, but we're having like a fun time with their haircuts and shit like that. But we'll leave that off for this week and return it next week, just kind of due to the somberness of the world of wrestling this week, and especially with Bray Wyatt, so passing away at a young age. But guys, of course,
do you want to see the little video you sent me with Jericho?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I thought this was very cool. Chris Jericho with his band Fozzy was performing in the UK just a few days ago, and this was what occurred there.
Everyone else, you guys can sing. Thanks to you guys for remembering him. And we dedicate this show tonight, and I dedicate this show on Sunday to the memory of the late great Windham Rotunda.
Yeah, very cool crowd reaction there, and a nice gesture by Chris Jericho to acknowledge Windham Rotunda. And I suspect you'll see a lot of that tomorrow night as well. I'm sure a lot of those guys in AEW. We know a lot of those guys. Matt Hardy was a former tag team partner of Bray Wyatt. I'm sure there'll be some dedications or some Easter eggs, if you will, for those guys, paying their respects and love to Bray Wyatt. A lot of guys took to social media. Seth Rollins yesterday was kind of at a loss for words and put something out there. And Braun Strowman and Eric Rowan showed up last night for SmackDown, and him and Braun Strowman shared a moment there. So, yeah, very cool video there, guys. But let's do what we do on this show, right, guys? We always talk some classic wrestling. Chris, I know you got the vault open up, so go ahead and take that over, buddy.
Yes, as we do each and every week, my disclaimer, I do not sell any of this footage to anybody. I do not trade it. It is for our enjoyment of this show. And we have 3 clips this week, as usual. So, John, let's roll number 1. Here we're looking at a young Tito Santana that went under a different name, Mercedes Solis.
Ooh, what a mustache he had.
And then here down in Mid-Atlantic Worldwide territory, he went under the name Richard Blood for some reason.
Oh, wow. Jeez,
Richard Blood. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
I know that was used with Ricky Steamboat at first, so that's why they changed it to Ricky Steamboat, but...
Wow. Yeah, Steamboat sounds better than Ricky Blood.
Yeah. And, of course, here he is in Winnipeg going against the great Nick Bockwinkel. Just some different classic clips of Tito Santana. Here he is in the AWF promotion. in early 90s.
What a star he was.
Yeah.
For never, kind of like you wouldn't say, right? Where would you put him? He's like a mid-level type,
Yeah, Intercontinental Champion, mid-level. He was never a world champ in WWF. I know that, but yeah.
But a big fan, man. Everyone knew, like, pop culture type knowing too. Everyone knew who he was.
Yep, and definitely a big star. Regardless of a heavyweight champion or not, but.
And of course, as Bobby Heenan said, his famous sister, Reba McEntire. Of course, their moment at WrestleMania 8. Again, I'll always say WrestleMania 8 was the best commentary Heenan's ever done, and he's done some classics. But as Reba McEntire saying "God Bless America," she was leaving the ring as Tito was coming down the aisle, and Bobby Heenan, look at that, he's acknowledging his sister, and Monsoon was like, "Will you knock that off?" And what do you mean? That's the Reba McEntire. So yeah, good stuff. Love Tito Santana. Yeah.
And we got a next one, John.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Championship Wrestling. My name is.
Oh, we jumped featuring a classic broadcaster here this week, and Jim Ross.
A tremendous card for all of the wrestling fans in the area. Of course, the return of the first Tri-State champion Terry Gibbs. He will be on this card live. Superfly Jimmy Snuka in very impressive fashion here on Championship Wrestling.
Here's a classic interview.
A worldwide reputation. We've talked about the many titles that he has held. A tremendous athlete. A man that has come to this area, I know, for one reason.
Look at him going up top, like you're saying. You leave yourself.
And then we know Mr. Jim Ross had a short stint in commentary with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Crash and burn, or you can score the pinfall. Look at this. Oh, the cradle suplex dropping Okada on the back of his head. Okada in trouble. AJ. I figured my stage of the game, my daughters hate to hear me say this. I'm back nine in life. I get it. You guys look at me, son. I'm 68 years old. You're great. Oh, piss and vinegar. But I am. The truth is, and blue cheese. Occasional blue cheese. I'm living every day, like I said earlier, one day at a time here, but I didn't know what to expect. I thought, here's the thing, some people are already talking.
And the most recent pit here of good old JR.
I'm worried about.
Hey, he's doing a podcast from his bedroom there. Attaboy, JR.
Yeah, he's got Grilling with JR, I believe it's called.
Yes. Yep. Back when I was doing the Monday Night Mayhem show years ago, Jim Ross was somebody that we were able to reach out to here and there, and he ended up sending us some free barbecue sauce, which was great. It was actually good barbecue sauce, so and it's still going, so obviously it's good. So yeah, shout out to Jim Ross, absolutely.
Yeah, and we got one more, John. And of course, Blackjack Mulligan Jr., a.k.a. Barry Windham.
Oh, is that Norm Kimber, right?
Yes, Norm Kimber there in Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh, yeah.
And then here he is against Terry Funk from down in Puerto Rico.
Oh, yeah, the Funkster with the branding iron there, absolutely.
Mid-'80s.
But basketball hoop in the background, oh, yeah, that's 80s all day.
And then here we go against the great Kabuki in Japan. Another title bout down in Japan.
Barry Windham's a big dude.
Yeah, he's got to be 6-something here. And look at what a 6-man tag, talking about trios. Right? Legends here. Barry Windham, Mr. Perfect, and Mike Rotundo.
Wow.
There goes the gum.
There's the gum. Yeah. Nobody did it like Kurt Hennig, man.
Yeah, wow. What a 6-man tag that was.
Perfect clip there,
Yeah.
because of course the father of Bray Wyatt, Mike Rotunda, and Barry Windham being uncle, I believe, of his.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it at the time. Of course, I think I did the clips before I
Yeah,
heard that
before.
tragic news. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you are right.
It's fitting. Yeah, there was something that you did that beforehand.
No, and I apologize for not knowing this, but Barry Windham, I know he had it was like some heart issues last year. He's still with us, correct?
Yes. As far
Good.
as I know, he's doing well. You are right. I haven't heard anything recent, other than with this tragic loss of Bray Wyatt and the whole family atmosphere there. So, but yes, he
Good.
is, and hopefully we can have him as a guest. That would be good.
That would be great to hear his thoughts on that. Yeah, they're because they replayed an old video of Bray Wyatt from last year when Barry Windham went through those heart problems that he was having, and Bray in that video discussing how those guys were, when he was a kid, those guys were invincible to him. And then as he became a man, he got older and he, pulled the curtain back and grew up, and he saw what Barry Windham went through with that. He was just, even at that point, just saying, just live life to the fullest, man. You don't know. And thankfully, Barry Windham's okay. But yeah, man, it's just crazy. It's crazy how fast things happen. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing. But yeah, perfect video for that, to see those guys there. IRS, as he later became, Mike Rotunda.
Let me, and I should know this, but it's slipping my head. What is Bray Wyatt's name?
Wyndham.
Wyndham Rotunda, and which I think is a combination of Barry Windham and then, of course, which is great. I think it's such a cool name, Wyndham Rotunda.
Well, actually, come to find out, too, guys, which, of course, I didn't know years ago. I thought it was Mulligan with Blackjack and Barry. Their last name is Wyndham.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Probably why they got that, gave them the name Wyndham. But, yeah.
Very, very famous name in the world of wrestling, Wyndham. Cody Rhodes' entrance music starts out by saying wrestling has more than one royal family. Like the Wyndhams are up there. The Rhodes, of course, are up there. I mean, there's just so many. The McMahons, of course, whoever else. But yeah, that's when you think Wyndham, you think Barry Windham. And of course, now you think Mike Rotunda, Bray Wyatt. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, guys, before we wrap it up, let's thank our fans across all social media and platforms that we're on. Of course, our home Facebook. We thank you and appreciate you. Also on Twitter at Count Anywhere. X, I guess. You're right. And also we're still on Spotify, and of course our YouTube channel, Friends with the Z Media Network. Put that all in together under the search, and you can find not only just our show here, but all of John's great shows, and just one day at a time, guys.
Absolutely, guys. Onward and upward, right? And take every day as it comes, man. Live every day. People, it's such a cliche, like live every day to the fullest, but man, it's the truth. You just don't know. Like I said, we saw Terry Funk at 79 pass away, unfortunately, and then at the age of only 36, Bray Wyatt passed away. So live every day to the fullest, and that's why too, guys. Even if we just reach one person, we give that helpful public information at the end of each and every show, and even if it just affects one person, that's a win. You know what I mean? Because mental health issues or whatever the case may be, physical health, whatever the case may be, we like to give that helpful information. John, do we have anything for this week for that?
Yeah, this week we're going to go with 988. We have that on our commercial, and 988 is it's like 911, 988. If you're in distress and you really feel like you might take your own life, that's a place to call. That's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day, Christmas, it doesn't matter. For my other show, we found we know somebody who called and it worked, and they sent back and said that it was unbelievable. They told us the whole story, talked for 6 hours, and felt better and just got themselves help. So 988 is the place to go if you're in that feeling of despair.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for that, John. Well, guys, as we wrap up here, and we got a little afternoon preseason football here. Our local Buffalo Bills taking on John's favorite team, the Chicago Bears. It's only preseason, but we'll definitely be checking it out and see if maybe Josh Allen can get his shit. Well, Josh Allen did okay last week. It's the offensive line that's got to get their shit together. So, if you could send a memo to the team, John, don't go after Josh Allen today. Just
I think they're all playing a quarter, maybe quarter and a half. I think
could be. Yeah. I would assume at least a couple series because they look like shit against the Steelers. So yeah, they've got to figure it out today.
I was reading that the Bears and the Bills looks like the first quarter might be the whole thing. The both starting units. I know both teams are pretty hurt, but what they got.
Yeah, it's good to see your boy Justin Fields and what he could do this year as well.
Yeah, that'll be fun. He's got everything you need to succeed, so we'll see.
Absolutely, guys. And, like I said, enjoy the football this weekend. Enjoy the All In AEW pay-per-view, the NWA 75. You're going to check that out. So, yeah, it's a lot of viewing to be had this weekend. So I hope you guys enjoy it as we creep up on Labor Day next week. Labor Day weekend already, guys. Summer's already over. So in the up and coming weeks, we'll be recapping AEW All In. We'll be talking some classic wrestling with some great guests as well going forward. Hoping to have our panel back with George Shire and Wes Mabement and the crew. So stay tuned for that, guys, in the up and coming weeks, and we'll keep the Facebook page updated as much as we can. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.
Take care, guys.